Today, the Kansas Jayhawks kick off their in-conference Big 12 slate as we start things off in Morgantown, West Virginia. Country roads, take me home. We're facing off against the Mountaineers. So far, it's been a great start to the year for the Jayhawks as we are 3-0. We've moved up to number 11 in the AP poll, and we have passed our non-conference tests with flying colors. But today, we get to the really important games. In the last episode, we beat UNLV 38-7 to put ourselves in position to go undefeated into our Big 12 slate. And as I kind of talked about towards the end of the last episode, I felt like these first three games were kind of preseason games, not to diminish their importance, but it's very unlikely that we get an at-large bid into the college football playoff. The most realistic pathway of getting in would be winning the Big 12 Conference Championship. So I really wanted to use these three non-conference games to figure out who the players that I trust the most are and to figure out what we need to do in order to position ourselves to hopefully make the Big 12 Championship and possibly get into the college football playoff. In this game against UNLV, both sides of the ball really clicked, and we started off slow, down 7-0 after the first quarter, but we outscored them 38-0 in the second and third quarters, and ultimately in the fourth, we were able to let the pedal off the metal and put some of the backups in. Through 3 weeks, we had the second highest point differential in America, only trailing the Oregon Ducks, and we had the number one scoring defense in college football, only having led up 23 points. That's less than 8 per game so far, but it's going to get harder here in Big 12 play. Every team we've got left on the schedule is good in some way. Even if the record doesn't show it, it's going to be a challenge regardless, and I think West Virginia sort of shows that. They're 1-2, but don't get it twisted. This is going to be a dogfight. Before we get started, though, I do want to quickly go through our recruiting update, including updating you guys on the prospects who visited last week and where we are on those battles. So we had 4 players come to campus last week, and they were the 4 players whose film we discussed in the last episode. A number of them have continued to narrow their lists down, along with a few players we're talking about today, narrowing down to either 5 or 8 schools in which we are first for everybody on the list. A lot of these battles are going to start to heat up, and we're going to talk about most of these prospects over the next couple of weeks in depth. But let's start with the guys we went over last week, and that starts with the 2 quarterbacks, Clyde Poole and George Shembo. Poole's visit went well. He is down to 3 schools, and we have the clear edge over Kansas State. If all goes well, I think there's a real shot that he commits to our program this week, which would be a big deal. Sure, his ranking isn't overly high. He's not a top 1,700 player, but he's got a really fun skill set and is a player who I think has a lot of room to develop. With George Shembo, I feel like the visit went pretty well too. But Alabama still very clearly has the edge. It's not looking good, and we figured this was going to happen. I'm going to continue to put points into him because it's worth a shot, but it's looking really unlikely. As for the 2 pass rushers, Ben Bieria is another guy who I expect to commit to the program this upcoming week. We have a very comfortable lead. And then with Angel Logan, it is really close. LSU is the slight edge, but we have made up ground from last week, and I'm hoping we're going to make up even more ground this week and possibly look to flip him from the Tigers, where he's projected to commit this upcoming week. So with Logan and Shembo, I am going to put more points into them than I was previously. With Shembo, it's a complete Hail Mary. It's worth a shot. We can now hard sell him. And it seems like based on his goals, he wants to go to a winning program and eventually play in the NFL. Obviously, Alabama gives him a better shot at both of those things, despite the fact that the Crimson Tide are only 1-2 this year. But maybe we can sway him. We have 10 more hours available, so I figured I might as well DM him as well. The more hours we can get, the more influence for him. And then with Angel Logan, he's got 60 hours that we can utilize. So we're going to not only DM him, but also search his social media. The more ways we can get recruiting hours into him, the more influence we can have and the better chance we have of getting him to commit. LSU is the favorite, but there's a shot we can get him to flip and sign with our program. His number one deal breaker is playing time, and that's definitely something that he would be getting here. Let's talk about some of the other prospects who are going to be visiting the campus over the next couple of weeks. We're going to highlight 2 players today, and both of them come from the state of Kansas. I really want to focus on in-state recruiting in this series because the Jayhawks have struggled with that in recent years. It looks like we're going to get Clyde Poole, but there are 2 more players who I want to talk about. Both of them play for rival schools, so I'm hoping to turn these guys from rivals into teammates. We're in first place for both of them, and they're 2 of the top 5 players in the state. They're both 4 stars, so these are going to be big gets if we can land them. And that starts with running back Jazeer Tolbert from Overland Park, Kansas. Overland Park is roughly 25 miles away from Lawrence, so he lives really close to our campus. He currently plays for Blue Valley Northwest High School, which is one of the top football programs within this state. As you can see by his skill set, he's more of a power back, 5'11", 225. He can be a home run hitter, and he can make the big play, but he also wins with strength and power. We went to this game against Mill Valley, another one of the top programs in the state, and he was the best athlete on the field. He recorded over 250 yards of scrimmage in this game, and most importantly, led his squad to the win. Tolbert is a top 200 prospect in the country. He's the 2nd-ranked prospect in the state of Kansas. We had the edge on him. Kansas State is in the race, but we are the clear leader in the doghouse. He'll be visiting our school next week, and if things go well, I expect him to commit. And given that Devin Neal is on the last year of his eligibility, I think there's a real shot that Tolbert could get some action as a true freshman next season. And then we take a look at Seth Jennings, who's from Shawnee, Kansas, which is the town directly north of Overland Park. The 2 places are probably 2 or 3 miles away from each other, so they're really close by. Jennings plays for Mill Valley High School, another one of the top programs within the state, and this is the game against Blue Valley Northwest, which is the school that Jazeer Tolbert plays for. While Mill Valley and Seth Jennings lost this game, Jennings might have been the best player in this game, period. He recorded 3.5 sacks, and Blue Valley Northwest has a good left tackle. He's going to South Dakota State, and Seth Jennings just completely obliterated him throughout the entire game. I really like his skill set. He's got great athleticism, and he's got great size, 6'4", 275. He has NFL-level traits, and I think for a high school prospect with his type of upside, he's polished as a pass rusher. He can win with speed. He can win with power, and I'm very confident he has a chance to be a starter for us next season. I'm really confident that we're going to get both him and Tolbert, and I think that both of these players are going to be cornerstones for our team over the next few years. We only have one prospect who is ready for a visit. That's wide receiver Trent Aurora. We talked about him a little bit in the last episode, how his number 1 deal breaker is proximity to home. And obviously, Ole Miss has the advantage because he's from Starkville, Mississippi. That's where Mississippi State plays. I got my locations mixed up in the last episode, so I apologize about that. We can't have him visit next week, though, because we have 2 other receivers who are going to be on campus, so I'm not going to schedule a visit for him just yet. I want to see how this battle with Ole Miss goes, and then choose when we're going to have him visit from there. So we've got 175 hours left to spend, and this is how we're going to utilize them here in week number 4. We're going to start by scouting this kicker, Anthony Escalante. I think kicker's a quiet long-term need for us. I don't want to put 30 points into him, though, so I'm only going to use 10. He looks pretty good, so we're going to give him a scholarship and start to look to put some focus on him. With Jazeer Tolbert, we can't hard sell him yet. We only have 3 question marks here, so we know that most of the things he doesn't care about, but we only have 1 green check mark. We still have to figure out the other 2, and there's multiple combinations that still work. I don't want to sell the house on him because I think that's a waste of hours, but I still want to put a lot of influence into him because I don't want Kansas State to catch up, so we are going to contact friends and family. With Trent Aurora, there are still multiple combinations that can work for our pitch, so we're going to have to stick with sell the house for now. I want to put as many points into him as possible, even though we really don't need to sell the house. And I'm going to get in on a few other players as well. Offensive tackle Nicholas Perkins is a guy who we're going to start to prioritize. JUCO guard Cameron Hardwick as well. I'm going to scout some of these other offensive linemen. Kion Sample unfortunately looks like a bust, while center Luis Roche might be a little bit better, so we're going to start by DMing him and enter this battle pretty slowly. I also want to get in on Devontae Crispin. He's the number 1 player in the state of Kansas. I don't think he's as good as guys like Jazeer Tolbert or Seth Jennings, but that's still a battle I want to win. And then linebacker Mo Nwokeji and safety Javier Ayanbadeo are two defensive players who I'm interested in, along with running back Kane McKeithen and quarterback DeAndre Rainbolt, and then safety Adrian Bourgeois. So we're now going to be putting more of the focus on some of the other players who haven't been recruited as heavily, now that I've got a little extra points to use, while still putting as many hours into pretty much all of our top targets as possible. Next week, I'm expecting to get our first couple of commits. Ben Biaria should sign. Clyde Poole should sign. We'll know what George Shembo is going to do, and we'll see what happens with the Angel Logan sweepstakes. And we might get some others as well, but it's unlikely. So that sets us up for our matchup here against West Virginia. And as I talked about earlier, these 9 games are the ones that really matter. The goal is to make the Big 12 championship, to position ourselves to get a playoff spot, and we only have in-conference games the rest of the year. Most of the teams within the Big 12 are starting their in-conference slate today, and we've got some really good games on the schedule here in week number 4 between some of the ranked teams. There's a few ranked teams in our conference. We're only going to play one of them this year, that being Colorado. And I feel like we got really lucky because we don't have to play Arizona, we don't have to play Utah, we don't have to play Oklahoma State. The latter two are playing against each other today, though. 2 top 10 teams in the country, the 2 highest ranked teams within the conference. I'm curious to see which team is going to position themselves to be the early favorite within the Big 12. As for us, we of course are going to West Virginia to face off against the Mountaineers. On one hand, West Virginia has not beaten an FBS opponent yet this year, but on the other hand, they almost beat Penn State. The Nittany Lions needed a huge fourth quarter comeback to win that game, at Happy Valley no less, but they did lose last week to their arch rival Pitt, so I got to imagine they're going to be hungry and pissed off coming into this game against us. Senior Garrett Green leads the way at quarterback, one of the better signal callers within the conference. I was most excited to play against C.J. Donaldson. He's a really fun player, a big, bruising running back, but with knee cartilage tear, he will not play today. Jaheim White, the sophomore, will take a bulk of the carries out of the backfield, and he really struggled last week against Pitt. The West Virginia offensive line is a strength. They've got a really good left tackle. I'm curious to see how true freshman Dekias Brinkley matches up with him. Their defense is a little bit of a question mark, though, and they've been inconsistent so far this year defensively. But ratings-wise, their roster might be a little bit better than ours. So even though we're 3-0 and ranked number 11, and these guys are under 500, this is not a game to take lightly. On the road, starting conference play, it's kind of a clean slate for both of these teams. And I think West Virginia has a real chance here. So we've got to set the tone early and really play our brand of football. Run the ball down their throats, continue to play suffocating defense, and hopefully we can get another good performance out of Jalen Daniels, as he has been excellent at quarterback through the first 3 weeks of the year, as it looks like the Jayhawks will start with the football. It's an early 3rd down and 5 here for Kansas as Daniels looks to throw it under pressure, goes short for Devin Neal. Woo! Nice move to get the first down. A great play after the catch there by the All-American running back, as it's another play action. On first down, Daniels goes downfield. He's got Lawrence Arnold with a juke move. Arnold gets a block. Nobody's in front of him, and he takes it the distance for a touchdown. What a start for the Jayhawks within the first minute of the game. Mom, get the camera. He's doing the gritty. A 57-yard touchdown for the senior Lawrence Arnold. And Kansas is on the board within seconds here in Morgantown. Good throw by Daniels, but an exceptional play after the catch by Lawrence Arnold. Makes the first guy miss, recognizes he has space to the right side, and he's able to beat out the last defender by stiff-arming him for the final 5 yards. And with that, Kansas gets off to a very quick lead as it's 7-0, and we take our first look at the West Virginia offense. No C.J. Donaldson, of course, in the backfield, as on first down, Garrett Green hands it off for Jaheim White, who smothers the defender and gets the first down. That's the senior safety, Marvin Grant, one of the toughest players on the roster, who just got bulldozed. Following play here for the Mountaineers, Green looks to throw it. Under pressure, he is sacked by the senior defensive tackle, Javier Derritt. And it goes for a loss of 6. 3rd and long now for the Mountaineers. Here is Green looking downfield. He's got an open man. It's Hudson Clement. He gets by Dotson and is finally wrapped out of bounds by Devin Dye. Big play for West Virginia, keeping the chains moving, getting nearly 40 yards. On second down, Green is intercepted. Mello Dotson redeems himself after allowing the big reception on third down. He bounces back with his first interception of the year. Good play there by Dotson to stop in his tracks and recognize where the football is going. I think Green threw it a little bit ahead of his receiver, and so Kansas forces the turnover. They get it back. Big play here, 3rd and 4. Devin Neal up the middle, does not get the first down, but we have a flag. It's a face mask against West Virginia. It's going to be a free 15 yards and an automatic first down. Reed Carrico is called for the penalty. On first down, here's Daniels on the run, has an open man. It's Lawrence Arnold once again. Tries to juke away from the defensive back. He does get the first down, though, inside the 25. A very quick start for Lawrence Arnold. He's been on a tear to start this game. On first down, it's a screen for Arnold. He's got blocks. Nobody's in front of him again. Lawrence Arnold back in the end zone for a second time today. And Kansas adds to the lead. We're still in the first quarter, and Lawrence Arnold already has around 100 yards and multiple touchdowns. What a great start for the Jayhawks. Talk about setting the tone. They look awesome to begin this game. Up the middle, Jaheim White with a big run. He gets the first down. White already has way more yards than he did last week in the loss against Pitt as he gets it back. Gains around 4 or 5, but we've got a flag, some extracurricular after the play. It's a face mask on Marvin Grant, who's had a rough start to this game in run defense, and West Virginia gets the automatic 15 yards. A little bit over a minute left here in the first quarter, 1st and 10 at around the 27 as Green's going to throw it quickly. It's caught by Quinton Hinton, who gets West Virginia Hinton closer to the end zone as he brings it to around the 11. We'll see if the Mountaineers can punch it in, make it a one-score game as the other tight end's in motion. It looks like another wheel route, and it works once again. Traylon Davis, the starting tight end, is in for a touchdown, and West Virginia is on the board. It looks like the Mountaineers are going to make this a game as it is 14-7. Kansas back with it. Final play of the quarter, nearly intercepted. Jalen Daniels dodged a bullet. That's his first incompletion of the entire game. He was 8 of 8 before that. Otherwise, it's been a really good first quarter for him. He's thrown for 134 yards and 2 touchdowns as Kansas leads it 14-7. The offense has been brilliant. Defense started off well, but that last drive, they didn't look too good as it's 3rd and 8. Daniels under some pressure. He's going to look to possibly run with it, and he fumbles it as he's going out of bounds, only gaining 6 or 7. So West Virginia gets the stop. They force the 3 and out, and they will get it back on offense. 3rd and 10 from around the 41. Green looks for the sidelines, and he overthrows it. Incomplete, and so West Virginia has to punt it. We had no punts in the first quarter, but already too early here. It's a fake to Grimm. Short pass is caught by Grimm, and the Grim Reaper, Luke Grimm, gets a nice first down. Good play after the catch to keep the chains moving. 2nd and 3, read option. Jalen Daniels keeps it. West Virginia doesn't see it coming, and he gets the first down. Daniels has been electric on the ground, but he was quiet as a runner last week. As it's now a 3rd and 10, Daniels evades a sack, but is eventually brought down. Reed Carrico with the initial pressure, and Ty French brings him down. That forces another punt. West Virginia continuing to play great defense here in the second. Davis in motion. These wheel routes are killing Kansas so far as Traylon Davis gets past the 50. Really good tackle, though, from Grant, saving what could have been a huge play. It looks like West Virginia's calling an audible. Just about everybody's in motion here on first down from the 49. Green under pressure, has a man open. It's Hudson Clement, and he brings it to around the 12. Huge play for West Virginia. They're getting everybody to the line quickly. It seems like they go no huddle after big plays. Interesting strategy is on first down. Short throw caught by Clement on the RPO for the score. Hudson Clement has had himself quite the start. Mello Dotson did the interception earlier, but in coverage, he hasn't been that good today. After a slow start, West Virginia has bounced back, and we're tied at 14. On second down, Daniels goes short. It's caught by Luke Grimm. Down the sidelines, he's pushed out, but not before a big first down reception as Luke Grimm continues to be a menace after the catch. 3rd and 7 now. Huge play for Kansas. They've got to get some momentum on offense. Up the middle, it's Devin Neal with the first down. Jukes by a defender nearing the 20. Kansas has not been able to run the ball at all today, but they still want to get Devin Neal involved, and I think using him as a receiver is the best way to do that. 2nd and 5, Neal up the middle with a first down. That might be his first down run of the entire game. It has been tough sledding running the ball so far as it's an RPO. Jared Casey with the juke move, and the senior tight end is in for the score. The Jayhawks are back in front. Huge drive from Jalen Daniels and the offense. Kansas needed that one. They played so well through the first 7+ minutes, but since then, this team has forgotten how to play football. They needed a drive to get things back on track, and they do, as Daniels throws his 3rd touchdown of the first half. West Virginia back with it. Green is sacked by guess who? Dekias Brinkley, the true freshman. This kid lives in the backfield. His NCAA leading 7th sack of the year. 3rd and long. Downfield, it's Davis, the tight end, who gets the first down. It seems like Kansas might get a big play to start the defensive series. It's 3rd and long, and West Virginia finds a way to pull a rabbit out of their hat, but not this time. On 3rd and 6, it's broken up by Kobe Bryant. Kansas back with it, looking to add to their lead late in the half. Daniels on the run, under pressure. What a throw for Lawrence Arnold. He's got 5 catches for 123 yards here in the first half. 3rd and 7, read option. The Jayhawks look to fake out West Virginia and go for the run, and they see it coming from a mile away. It's a loss of yardage resulting in West Virginia using a timeout. They are out, but they've got 20 seconds and still have a chance to score before the end of the half. On 3rd and 3, Green throws it away. It looked like he had some rushing room, but ultimately he sends it out of bounds. And now with just 4 seconds left in the first half, the Jayhawks are going to look to run the clock out. Maybe get a big play here from Devin Neal. Whoop! His longest run of the game. It gets to around the 38. And that'll do it here for the first half. A very competitive start here in Morgantown. Kansas on top 21-14. We have not been able to run the ball, and it has not mattered. Jalen Daniels in his first conference game of the year has put on a show. 15 of 19, 231 yards and 3 touchdowns. There have not been many quarterbacks in college football who have been more efficient this year as a passer than Jalen Daniels, who's completed around 70% of his passes. Last week, he completed 18 of his last 20. And of course, he has not thrown an interception yet all season. Despite being efficient, though, Daniels has made a lot of big-time throws down the field, averaging over 12 yards per attempt in this game, much of which has been because of what Lawrence Arnold has done after the catch. So West Virginia starts with the ball here in the 3rd quarter. They still have a really good chance to win this game. They're only down by 7. They start with possession, and they've ran it well. As Jaheim White gets the first down to around midfield, they've run the ball significantly better than Kansas has, and their pass game hasn't been too bad. White up the middle with another big run. He's got 10 catches for 105 yards. Devin Neal on 10 carries has 39 yards, and 15 of those come from a garbage time play at the end of the first half. Certainly not what I would have expected coming into this game, as it's an RPO caught by Hudson Clement. He breaks a tackle and brings it to around the 10-yard line for West Virginia. 4 catches for 95 and a score for Clement, as here's White. Powers his way into the end zone for a touchdown, and this game is tied at 21. Jaheim White does the pose, and honestly, deservedly so. He has had one hell of a game after only getting 9 carries for 24 yards last week against Pitt. He has ran all over what has been one of the better run defenses in the nation. So Kansas has it back here in a tie game. Devin Neal gets by the first hit, and a big run for Neal, his longest of the game, as he is smothered out of bounds, but not before gaining 24 yards. That's what we've been looking for out of the ground game. Neal in motion, Daniels on the run, looking downfield. He's got Lawrence Arnold wide open, hurdles a man, and he's inside the 30. Lawrence Arnold has been uncoverable today, and through the first 3.5 games of the year, he's averaging around 20 yards per reception. His ability after the catch has been exceptional. Big run there by Daniels. That'll bring Kansas into the red zone. He hasn't been all that effective on the ground like last week, but that was a big play, keeping the chains moving. 3rd and 6, it's a run up the middle. Devin Neal doesn't get much, maybe a yard or two, and that'll bring out the field goal team. It's a chip shot from 25, and the kick is centered as well. Owen Piper-Gertie's kick is up and through. So the Jayhawks regain the lead. It's now 24-21. I felt like we could have gotten more out of that drive, but at least we got points and are back ahead. So West Virginia will get the ball back here late in the third. Still anybody's game. Kansas has dominated this year in the third quarter, but so far today, not so much. Coming into this game, we had only allowed 3 points in the third. So West Virginia getting that early touchdown already broke our impressive trend. On first down, it's a delayed handoff for Jaheim White, and he loses 2. Dylan Brooks, the senior edge rusher, brings him down. 2nd and 12 now, under a lot of pressure. Short throw for White, and he is smothered in the backfield, losing 5. It's the true freshman, Damani Maxson, who brings him down. On 3rd and 17, Green goes downfield. It's caught by Jaden Bray for a first down. Another long third down conversion. That's been the story of the game for the West Virginia offense. Can they get another on 3rd and 10? Green under pressure, and he is sacked again. Dekias Brinkley with his 2nd of the game. I was curious to see how he would match up with All-American left tackle Wyatt Millum, and Brinkley has told him to eat my shorts. 2 sacks today for Dekias Brinkley. It's on 3rd and 4. It's a run with Highshaw, and he does not get it. That'll wrap up a busy third quarter of action as the lead has decreased for the Jayhawks, but they're still on top, 24-21. West Virginia will start with the ball here to open up the fourth quarter. We'll see if they can possibly look to take the lead. We have not had a close game going into the fourth quarter yet this year until today. Let's see how the Jayhawks can respond to some adversity. It's a screen on first down, and it's a loss of 2. Kobe Bryant with the TFL. 2nd and 12. Nice throw downfield. It's Jaheim White, who's able to make a nice play after the catch for the first down. The defensive back was completely spooked after he caught the ball. He didn't know what to do. So now West Virginia has it at around the 32. Man in motion. Short throw is caught. The wheel route continues to be a burden. It's Quinnen Holden who gets 39 yards, and West Virginia is close to the red zone. One of their longest passes of the entire game. Play action. Green under pressure. He's sacked. The senior edge rusher, Jeremy Robinson, is in the backfield with his first sack of the year. 2nd and long now. The Kansas pass rush has had a great day. I think they have 4 sacks up to this point. Brinkley obviously leading the way with 2. As it's a play-action fake. Green under pressure. He's sacked again. Dylan Wutke, the Youngstown State transfer, is in the backfield this time. It's a 5th sack for the KU defense, and it's 3rd and 22. That might have knocked them out of field goal range. Downfield shot is broken up, incomplete by Devin Dye. So it's going to be a long field goal here, roughly a 52-yarder to tie it for senior kicker Michael Hayes. This kick is up, and it is good. He got it. A long one for Hayes, but this one is knotted up at 24. Big kick for West Virginia after taking the first 2 sacks to start the possession. And now we come to our biggest offensive drive of the entire season. Why is Coach Puma Whitlock celebrating the kick? That's odd because he's our coach. He shouldn't be happy about that. 3rd and 4, read option for Daniels. He finds space, gets the first down, breaks a couple tackles, and is out of bounds at around the 40. Big run for Daniels, continuing what has been an exceptional game for him. 3rd and 7, under 5 to go. Daniels looks short for Grimm, and it is broken up as he drops it. So West Virginia's defense holds, and Kansas will have to punt. The defense now will need to save the undefeated season. Here's Damon Greaves with the punt, and this one is a beauty! Down at the 1! What a punt! West Virginia is in prime safety territory. Short handoff for White. Breaks a tackle, and he is wrapped up in the end zone! 2 hands for safety! The defense puts the Jayhawks ahead. We got to look at this replay again because in real time that did not look like a safety at all. But as you'll see here, White was on top of the defensive player the entire time until he was in the end zone. He breaks the initial tackle from Jason Gilliam, and as J.B. Brown tries to bring him down, White never hits the ground. He's on top of Gilliam the entire time. It looks like his elbow hits, but it never does. He first hits the ground in the end zone. Kansas got lucky there that he was on top of Gilliam, but 2 points is 2 points. The Jayhawks with the lead as Daniels gets the first down conversion on 3rd and 8. He does go out of bounds, which isn't ideal, but Still, nonetheless, huge conversion as that sends us to the 2-minute warning. The Jayhawks are looking to choose some clock, burn these timeouts, and finish this game for good. 2nd and 7. Handoff for Neal. Up the middle, doesn't get much as West Virginia burns their first of 3 timeouts. And that brings us to one of the biggest plays of the game. 3rd and 7. Can the offense convert? They'll go back to the ground. Neal finds room up the middle and gets the first. Huge run for Devin Neal. He's able to find the gap between the middle of the offensive line and convert. 3rd and 5. He does not get it this time, but West Virginia's out of timeouts. They're not going to have much time, roughly 23 seconds, but all they need is a field goal to win the game. The undefeated season on the line. Green on 1st down, throws it away. He knows he absolutely cannot take a sack with the Mountaineers being out of timeouts. 2nd and 10, down to 20 seconds. Green looks to throw it, can't find anybody, thinks about running with it, and he will finally throw it away. He should have gotten rid of it earlier. West Virginia's wasted half of their time on this drive, and they haven't gotten a single yard. 3rd and 10. Green looks to throw it under pressure. He's got to get rid of it quickly. It's incomplete. And now with 7 seconds to go, the game is on the line. This is it. 4th and 10. We'll see if Kansas can clutch up and win the game. Green takes his shot for the sidelines. It is caught! And this game stays alive for a little bit longer. Justin Robinson hangs on, and we've got 2 seconds left to go. So West Virginia doesn't have the opportunity for a field goal. They just have to take a shot for the end zone, and Kansas is going to call a timeout to try to get their defense situated. So this is it with 2 seconds. West Virginia has it at their own 45. They need 55 yards here on this play. We'll see if they can get it for all the marbles. Green looks downfield. He's got Clement. Makes the first guy miss. Gets by the second. And is pushed down at the 15 by O.J. Burrows. And the Jayhawks survive here in Morgantown. 26-24. A thrilling start to Big 12 play. We were this close to losing this game. If West Virginia had a couple extra seconds on the clock, they could have won it with a game-winning field goal. And if a few plays go differently, including the punt, followed by the safety, if Jaheim White isn't on top of our linebacker and is tackled at, say, the 2-yard line, there's a good chance this game ends up entirely different. It certainly wasn't a pretty win for Kansas, who only scored 5 points in the second half, but ultimately were able to get the job done. Good teams find ways to win challenging games, and that's exactly what we did here. Jalen Daniels had a really strong performance, 3 passing touchdowns, all of which came in the first half. I think the problem offensively is that we really just tried to focus on getting the ground game going too much in the second half, and we didn't really go off of what went well for us. It was the passing game that played really well for us, but we were too fixated on the ground game. And sure, we did run it better in the second half, but we didn't get many strong drives. We only ended up with 5 points, 2 of which was off of the safety. Lawrence Arnold was brilliant, 8 catches for 150. Throughout the year, it's been about spreading the ball to the receiving core, but today, Arnold, Grimm, and Neal had 18 of our 20 receptions, so we didn't really spread the ball around. It was just our best players getting the ball. The offensive line had another strong game, and the defense, it certainly wasn't perfect. We allowed more points today than we did through the first 3 weeks all year, but we did enough to win. J.B. Brown's tackle for loss was the difference. That, of course, was the safety. Dakaius Brinkley, 2 sacks against a 90 overall left tackle. He's now got 8 this year. Mello Dotson had a rough day in coverage, but if not for his interception, again, we probably don't end up winning the game. Shout out Damon Greaves with the big punt as well inside the 1. One of the many plays that saved us. Garrett Green had a strong performance. The completion percentage is low because he had to play hero ball, but overall I thought he played pretty well, as did Jaheim White. The West Virginia offense moved the ball down the field pretty well. Clement had a good game. Davis had a good game through the air. And their defense honestly was impressive as well. They really started the game off slowly, but they only allowed 1 touchdown after the first quarter, and they only let up 5 points in the second half. I think the reason why their defense didn't have a great game, though, is the lack of big plays. Only 1 sack and no takeaways. If they had gotten more pressure and possibly a turnover or 2, they probably win the game. So with that, we are now 4-0. We're still undefeated as Dakaius Brinkley wins another Big 12 Defensive Player of the Week. That is his 2nd of the year. third consecutive week we've not only had the Big 12 Player of the Week, but it's happened to be a true freshman all 3 times. So with that, let's take a look around the nation here at Week 4. We will start things off in Michigan. The Wolverines, coming off a 16-0 loss a couple weeks ago against Texas, look to bounce back as they start Big Ten play with USC, who's off to a good start this year. They beat LSU back in Week 1. So I feel like Michigan's out for a little bit of blood after their first loss against Texas, and they certainly looked the part, taking care of business here in the Big House against the Trojans, as Michigan would ultimately win this game 31-15. But it was really a blowout most of the way through, 24-0 at halftime. USC never really stood much of a chance. Despite an up-and-down day from Alex Orji, he still threw for 3 touchdowns, 2 of which were caught by the standout sophomore Samaj Morgan, who had 104 yards, while Colston Loveland had 84 of his own. Rough day for Miller Moss, barely completed 50% of his passes while throwing 3 interceptions, and USC didn't really run the ball well either. A team that has flown under the radar is Louisville. The Cardinals are undefeated. Of course, they made the ACC championship last year, and they've looked good this year. Challenging game here with 2-1 Georgia Tech, who's played really well this year with their upperclassman quarterback Haynes King. But the Cardinals would take care of business once again, improving to 4-0 with a strong game from Tyler Shuck. He threw 3 touchdowns and a really good day running the football with 131 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Louisville, now number 9 in the rankings. Again, despite a really good game from Haynes King, who has looked incredible to begin the year. Senior receiver Christian Leary has been one of the biggest breakout players in America. 8 catches for 156 and 2 touchdowns in the loss. As I mentioned, Tyler Shuck with 3 passing touchdowns, the redshirt senior. Maurice Turner, 8 yards a carry. Donald Chaney scored twice. Really good day for the ground game for the Cardinals. Let's head to South Bend. Notre Dame's looked really good this year as they face off against Miami of Ohio, a team who I've deemed as a big sleeper and one of the best Group 5 teams in America. The first half went as you would expect. Notre Dame was steamrolling Miami, and they held a comfortable lead going into halftime. But something snapped in this fourth quarter, and Miami of Ohio made a really nice push for a comeback. Brett Gabbert, the senior quarterback, threw for 5 touchdowns, and Miami brought the lead within 1 score, but unfortunately for them, their comeback bid fell short. After being outscored 21-0 in the first quarter and 24-7 at halftime, they would only lose by 8, 45-37, again with 5 passing touchdowns from Brett Gabbert, but he did throw 3 interceptions. Tracy and Perry, both with over 100 yards receiving, while Riley Leonard had a really strong day, throwing for 4 touchdowns and a big game on the ground for the Irish. Let's head to Florida State. The Seminoles face off against ACC newcomer Cal. The Golden Bears already have one big upset this year, beating Auburn on the road, and they would have another competitive game here in Tallahassee. Senior quarterback Chandler Morris is showing why he won the quarterback battle in the offseason. He had another really good game, throwing for 3 touchdowns, but it was not enough to hold DJ Uiagalelei, who scored 3 all-purpose touchdowns of his own with this ridiculous step back by Ja'Kai Douglas. And then DJ had 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground as well, trying to show that, the big fella can move it. Florida State wins a close one, 30-28. I still feel like you gotta feel good if you're a Cal fan with how this season has started. Chandler Rogers has had a really good season, and they did this with a bad game from Jaden Ott. If Ott would have played a half-decent game, Cal probably wins. DJ Uiagalelei throws for a score and again runs for 2. The talented senior's off to a good start this year as he looks to rebuild some draft stock after an up-and-down collegiate career with Clemson and Oregon State. Let's head to Washington. The Huskies have looked really good despite losing their head coach and all that talent to the NFL. They've been just fine this year, but they're facing off against a 3-0 Northwestern team who's been really solid. And the Wildcats would come into Seattle and upset the Huskies. It was an efficient day throwing the ball and a really good day on the ground. 4 separate players, including quarterback Mike Wright, scored rushing touchdowns. Northwestern beats Washington 28-13. And the Wildcats find themselves in the top 25. Who would have thought through 4 weeks Northwestern is ranked and Alabama is not? But here we are. Mike Wright, 23 of 27. And again, 4 different players scoring on the ground. Great day defensively as well for Northwestern, as Will Rogers was not bad per se, but he was quiet in the air. And the run offense was not existent for Washington. Let's look at some Big 12 action. Huge game here for Kansas State. They've lost 2 in a row. They lost their first conference game of the year last week to Arizona. They've got to get back on track here against BYU, who is certainly a formidable foe. And the star of this show was DJ Giddens. The upperclassman running back had a big day on the ground, leading Kansas State to a huge win, 35-27. It certainly helped with sophomore quarterback Avery Johnson throwing for 3 touchdowns. The transfer from Baylor, Jerry Bohannon, also threw for 3, and he ran for 91 yards in the loss for the Cougars. Big win for Kansas State. They needed to get a conference win. It would have been hilarious if they lost again, but I feel like this team is too good to start 1-3. Boston College is coming off an impressive win against Missouri last week. Now they head home to face off against Michigan State, who is ranked. Should they be ranked? Probably not, and it showed today. Another upset for the Eagles, who look to be a pretty big threat in the ACC. They've already beaten 2 very strong opponents this year. Their run game looks really solid as they beat Michigan State 27-19. Last episode, I accidentally called Boston College Bowling Green, and for that, I apologize. Boston College, you have now earned my respect with another impressive upset. The offense was solid, but the defense was great. Oregon State transfer Aiden Childs had a rough day throwing 4 interceptions. He did throw for 361 yards, but you're not going to win one-score games turning the ball over 4 times. Let's head to SMU, a rivalry here. The Mustangs have looked really good with their move to the ACC, facing off against 2-1 TCU, coming off a 1-point loss last week to UCF. This ended up being a really competitive game, but Preston Stone, who might be the best Group 5 quarterback in America, would lead the Mustangs to the win, the only team in college football who sits at 4-0. They win this one in a low-scoring game, 17-14, outscoring TCU 17-0 in the second half. Pretty good day here for Preston Stone, moving SMU up to number 17. This is a real sleeper in the ACC. I talked about them coming into the year as a team to watch out for, and they've proved me right. As for TCU, they've lost to 2 really strong teams in back-to-back weeks by a combined total of only 4 points. Got to imagine they're going to be hungry going into their game next week. And of course, they are headed to Lawrence to face off against our Kansas Jayhawks. Let's head now to what ended up being one of the most exciting games of the week. Tennessee and Oklahoma. 2 young quarterbacks battling it out with Nico Iamaleava and Jackson Arnold. This game felt like a welcome to college football for both of them, as both of these sophomore quarterbacks were tremendous. Both Nico Iamaleava and Jackson Arnold threw for 4 touchdowns and nearly 350 yards apiece. The 2 of them trading blows, trading punches, but ultimately with a big drive late in the game, it was Jackson Arnold and the Oklahoma Sooners who would hang on for the win, 30-35. This felt like a really important game for both teams because they both lost last week. Oklahoma dropped a game against Tulane, while Tennessee was upset against Kent State. Really strong comeback from Tennessee after starting down 21-3. They ultimately took the lead late, but a comeback drive from Arnold, who threw for 356 yards and 4 touchdowns, while rushing for another, was enough to get the win. Andrell Anthony scored twice, including the game winner. As for Tennessee, Nico Iamaleava was just as good. Nearly 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, and both quarterbacks were efficient, each completing 80% of their passes. NC State has lost 2 in a row. They've got to bounce back here against Clemson, and this game as well ended up being really competitive. Really strong showing from Grayson McCall. He's really developed a nice chemistry with freshman receiver Noah Rogers, but it was Cade Klubnik and the Clemson Tigers who would take this one 35-32. NC State is now 1-3, albeit they've lost to some good teams, Clemson and Tennessee, but this is certainly not the start to the year that the Wolfpack wanted, and if they want to make the playoff, they don't have much more margin for error. Sophomore Antonio Williams had a huge game for Clemson, 12 catches for 163 and 2 touchdowns. McCall had a good performance. He's not really the one to blame. Their defense let them down here big time. And finally, we wrap things up with the game that I was most excited about going into the week. For those who are wanting to follow the Big 12 closely, here's a big one. Number 8 Utah, number 9 Oklahoma State. This ended up being a really good game, but there was one player who shined brighter than the rest. A guy who has a lot to prove after missing pretty much the entire season last year, and that's Utah quarterback Cam Rising. He had a huge game, throwing for nearly 300 yards and 2 passing touchdowns while rushing for nearly 100 and another score. Utah with the win. Why is Cam Rising flexing on the official? Anyway, Utah with the win, 27-17. They jump Notre Dame and move up to number 7 in the rankings. I feel like Ollie Gordon's been kind of underwhelming this year. He hasn't necessarily been bad, but he's not the Ollie Gordon we saw last year. Hence why Oklahoma State drops this one. Really good game for Rising, showing that Utah might be the team to beat in the Big 12. And if there is anybody to beat them, could it be us? On one hand, I'm relieved that we don't have to see either of these teams this year, especially Utah, but that would be a fun matchup if it were to theoretically happen. Here's a look at some of the other scores around the country. Miami barely beats USF. Imagine if USF beats Alabama and Miami in the same season. Ole Miss with their first convincing win of the year with their cupcake schedule. Texas remains number 1 with a semi-competitive game against UL Monroe. And then there were some surprises with some of the non-ranked games as well. Mississippi State and Florida go into a shootout, but the Bulldogs win that one 52-49. South Carolina loses to Akron. The Gamecocks have won one game this year, and it's against LSU. Tulane loses to Louisiana 25-24. Tulane has beaten Kansas State and Oklahoma in back-to-back weeks, so losing is a surprise, but Louisiana's undefeated. They look like a strong team. Iowa beats Minnesota. Auburn beats Arkansas. Missouri with a pretty close win against Vanderbilt. UCLA beats LSU. The Tigers do not look good this year. After their Week 1 win against USC, they have fallen flat onto their face. LSU and Alabama in the SEC both have had very disappointing non-conference seasons. So here's a look at the rankings as it stands now. The top 6 remains the same. I feel like Utah should be 5. What have Penn State and Ole Miss done to be ahead of Utah? As for us, we move up a spot. We are now number 10, and then we start to see the one-loss teams like Michigan, Clemson, Florida State, Oklahoma, with a few unbeatens here, including Northwestern, the only team who enters the top 25, replacing Michigan State after their loss at Boston College. As for the players of the week, I feel like it's a wide receiver every time. Today, it's Coy Eakin of Texas Tech. While defensively, it's App State linebacker Thomas Davis, who had 5 sacks. Davis now has 8 sacks on the year, which is tied with Dakaias Brinkley for the most in college football. As for the Heisman watch, we do have a little bit of movement. Quinn Ewers and Dylan Gabriel swap spots at the top. Ewers is now in first. Shedeur Sanders stays in third. And then we have 2 newcomers. Max Johnson of UNC moves into fourth, while Haynes King, who, as I said when we talked about Georgia Tech, he's had a great year. The team's only 2-2, but he's played out of his mind. He finds himself in fifth. Going into week 5, we've got some really fun games. Conference play for everybody is now kicking into high gear. Louisville and Notre Dame, back-to-back weeks with 2 top 10 teams playing each other. Arizona and Utah, another tough test for the Utes within the conference. Georgia and Alabama. Let's see what the Crimson Tide look like against the real team. And then Ole Miss finally has to play a ranked opponent. They're facing Kentucky. As for us, we return home. We've got a lot of prospects visiting as we face off against 2-2 TCU, who, as I said earlier, their last 2 games, they've lost, but only by 4 combined points. This is a really strong team. I think they have a chance to be one of the better teams in the conference, and it's going to be a tough battle. Hope everybody enjoyed. Certainly a fun episode and a really fun game against West Virginia. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Peace out.